IRS Offer and Compromise is the #1 rated tax relief program that settles out your tax debt. This front-end tax settlement program works when you have a tax debt. If you make an offer to the IRS that's less than what you owe, if the IRS accepts it, you have no further requirements regarding paying that tax debt off. Of course, when it comes to any type of tax relief program, you must evaluate the pros and the cons. So let's go ahead and start off with the key takeaways when you cannot really afford to pay your taxes. Your monthly income and expenses is almost down to zero and you have no equity and assets to borrow or liquidate to pay off your taxes. Second, the moment you do apply for the program, all the collections stop. Although you have not been approved, just getting the process started stops all collections. Offer and Compromise is considered part of the Fresh Start initiatives that were revamped back in 2011 by the federal government. They basically made it much easier to qualify. Part of the calculation is part of your net disposable income used to be multiplied by 24 in order to qualify. What they did was they chopped it down in half and you multiply it by 12. My name is Sergio Melendez. I'm a Juris Doctorate, enrolled agent, over 19 years experience resolving tax problems. I have personally resolved hundreds of millions of dollars on behalf of my clients with IRS tax debt. If you're finding value in this video, like and subscribe for more. And if you have tax debt or tax problems and want a free case review to see what's the best way for you to solve it, let's book a one-on-one. Comment tax settlement. We'll reach out and coordinate that free case review. Hold your horses. It ain't all sunshine and rainbows with the Offer and Compromise.
The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows.
There are probably more cons than pros when dealing with this IRS tax relief program.
It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it.
Let's start by me getting into the key aspect regarding any tax debt case that you do have with the IRS. And that is the fact that the IRS has 10 years to collect on the balances due when you owe the IRS. Remember, folks, the clock starts ticking the moment you owe the IRS. That's when so if you file a tax return, IRS then has 10 years to collect. But in the case where you went through an audit and whenever the audit finishes and now you owe, it's as of then when the 10 years starts ticking. So part of the bad news is if you go through the IRS Offer and Compromise programs and it rejects and it fails, throughout the duration of that, you have extended that 10-year time frame. So this is a tolling event, and that's why it's more of a con than a pro regarding that time frame. Second of all, it could be a very lengthy program, up to 2 years. But one of the good things is that if they have not reviewed your stuff in 2 years, it's automatically accepted the moment it goes over the 2-year mark. However, you know that's extremely rare with the IRS. What they'll do if it's getting kind of long, they'll put you at the top of the list, make a decision, and boom, they don't have to comply with the automatically accepting. In addition, the IRS enforces strict compliance regarding your taxes. You must be caught up with all the prior tax filings that are due. In addition, they do monitor your account to make sure you have enough withholding through your paycheck, or if you're self-employed, you gotta make these estimated tax payments. You cannot screw the pooch on this one. You gotta maintain strict compliance. The moment that you slip, it gets returned. I'm going to go with regarding return and reject in a little bit. And another con is regarding the paperwork and what's required. It requires 2 different sets of the paperwork. One is the official calculation of how you came up with the offer amount, and the other is the actual engineering of the offer, whatever you're offering the IRS. The calculation is done on the 433A OIC if you're an individual. If you're a business, it's done on the 433B OIC. And how you make the offer is on a form 656. In addition to those IRS forms, you got to provide supporting documentation. One is regarding all of your income and your income sources. So if you're a W-2 wage earner, you got to provide pay stubs. If you're in business, whether self-employed or some kind of business entity, profit and loss and balance sheets. And everything else, you got to provide proof of bank statements, proof of fair market value of any type of retirement account, crypto investments, 401k, IRAs. You got to provide all of that stuff. So now let's get into procedure. The moment you file an Offer and Compromise program, everything halts. There's no collection action. Why? Because the IRS is fully evaluating whether they're going to forgive your taxes, get rid of it, write it off, whatever, accept the Offer and Compromise, or if it might be rejected down the road. But what they have to do is they have to assign an examiner, an IRS agent that's going to review every single thing on your account, including the 433 AOIC, the 656, and your supporting documentation. So this is the toughest part, and that's because a whole lot of nothing occurs. You are basically on pause mode and just awaiting on the IRS for their workflow to open up and for you to get that agent assigned. So whenever you file and submit this Offer and Compromise, about 30 days afterwards, you get a letter in the mail and they kind of give you a rough estimate when somebody will be assigned. And typically right now, it's about 4 to 5 months waiting before an agent gets assigned. But if the 4 to 5 months happen to come and there's nothing else, the IRS might send you another letter saying, hey, we just need more time. We're still evaluating your stuff and there's still more time. So let's fast forward and let's say once this agent is assigned, they're going to try a couple different ways to get a hold of you. Number one is they're going to maybe call you once, leave you a voicemail. You don't respond back. You get a letter in the mail saying, hey, I haven't heard from you. I'm going to return this offer if I don't get a call back or a fax or something within 10 days. And this is the part where the whole procedure is stacked up against you because number one, you waited for months on end for the assignment. Once this person is assigned, you have deadlines within days to respond back. That is really unfair. But of course, when it comes to IRS procedure and taxes, the whole system is rigged up against you. So that's why if you're at work, you're working full time, try to deal with all this mess, you better make sure you are able to take breaks. Tell your boss, hey, I'm expecting some important IRS stuff and I got to take a break to make a phone call or take a phone call or something like that while you're at work. Now, when this agent is assigned, what are they specifically looking at? Everything. Number one is, are you still filing your tax returns? You know, if so much time has passed on by, do you have a new tax balance due? So they might go ahead and return it. Your pay stubs, are you taking out enough taxes to make sure you avoid having a future balance? Or if you're self-employed, are you really making your estimated tax payments? They just pull up your account transcript and they see all the payments being made, whether you are making them timely every quarter. Third, they kind of go through the 433 AOIC and they scrutinize your financials like crazy. Every deposit in your bank account, whether it's the wages that you already disclosed or whether you have some kind of secret side hustle that you're not disclosing. They also check the terms and conditions of the offer you made, whether you're making the periodic 24 monthly payments or if you made the right 20% down in the application fee and all that stuff. Now, even though you submitted a full packet and all the supporting documentation, they might say, hey, I want to see updated stuff to make sure things have remained the same or if you had any type of life changes. If you're making more money now, in addition to whatever you listed on, they might want updated financial information. Through their own systems, they might run records regarding state, county, and they might even pull a credit report. And based upon all that, they might see additional items that you did purchase. They want to know how you purchased it, why you purchased it, did it build value, is it more appreciable assets that you do have now to maybe have either a counter of an offer, or if they might go ahead and reject it. And of course, what they want from you is maybe additional proof of whatever, or a written explanation of whatever it is that they did see and find. Now it's time for a decision based upon this IRS examiner. Now, this is a frontline employee, which means that whatever decision that they do make, you could maybe counter it if it's against you. So first of all, let's say everything lines up, you submit a bunch of stuff and they recommend it for acceptance. Great. I probably would give it a 90% chance it actually goes through because once again, they are frontline. And when they recommend for acceptance, it means they recommended it to their superiors, to their legal department. And their legal department kind of goes over the entire case once more. And if it goes through, everything is happy, boom, it gets approved. You could go ahead and celebrate. But that comes in the mail and the written letter says, we have accepted your offer and compromise. That's when you can celebrate. The moment you get it in writing. When the IRS agent gives you that verbal confirmation, that's when the 90% hits. You could celebrate once you get that letter in the mail. So by the time if they give you a verbal acceptance and by the time you get the letter, typically it's anywhere between 45 to 90 days afterwards. But let's flip the script. I mentioned return before. Return is the worst possible thing that could happen to you regarding an offer and compromise. What you would rather get is called a reject. A reject is based upon the merits of the offer and compromise itself, and there's something off. There is something wrong with your financials. There's a counter measure, a counter decision made by the IRS, where you could review that and go to the Office of Appeals and override the decision by the agent. A return is nothing. A return, there are no appeal rights. Typically, a return happens when you don't communicate with the IRS agent or there's something within your control that you didn't do, such as supply the IRS with a proof of a pay stub that has the appropriate withholdings. Submit proof that you have adjusted your withholding, you have adjusted your W-4, or if you're self-employed, you have the profit and loss statement and you are making these estimated tax payments, but you haven't made them. So IRS says, you know what, you are non-compliant, I'm going to return this offer. Or if you filed late or you didn't file a tax return, you didn't file an extension, it's already past the deadline. IRS does not mess around with a return. You have no appeal rights with a return. It's the worst possible thing because you have wasted your whole time when you get a return with an offer and compromise. But if it gets rejected, normally the IRS has this thing called the asset and equity table, which is basically your income, expenses, and all of your assets all listed up and what their calculation is. Now, these agents are people and they sometimes screw up. I've caught many screw ups where I say, you know what, I literally go line by line and I catch their errors and I submit my rebuttal. Now, there are times that the rejection comes in writing and you have 30 days to fill out the 13711 form back to the IRS and it goes back to the agent that did reject the offer and compromise. So if this agent gets the appeals, they have probably a chance to review it. They could still kind of keep the case open, consider whatever it is you did give, or what they could do is say, you know what, I close it off under reject. I'm going to go ahead and forward this to the Office of Appeals. Now, these IRS appeals agents, they are way more experienced than the regular frontline employee. And what they like to do is take an independent approach. They're going to review the entire IRS case, why they made the decision, and from you, what they would want to hear is why you disagree. But here's some good news. This IRS appeals officer can take new additional information from you. You are able to supply whatever it is that you need to do to prove up your case. And what the IRS Office of Appeals could do is they could override the decision of the IRS. So it's getting like a second shot in one, which is fantastic. A lot of the times there are many rejects that have gone through and got approved through the Office of Appeals. And typically, if an IRS appeals officer rejects the offer in compromise, then so be it. It is definitely time to then either move forward and find an alternative solution that is not the offer in compromise. I want to touch on acceptance. When the IRS offer in compromise does get accepted, you go through a probationary period of the next 5 years. You have 5 years to file on time and no new taxes past the deadline. So filing and paying is very important. What happens if you're non-compliant, the IRS will give you an immediate warning, and if you do not comply, then the entire balances comes right back. So it's something you don't want to mess with. Also, when it comes to approving, you do have the terms and conditions of the actual offer amount. Did you only pay 20% to get started and you have to 80% of whatever you did offer? For example, if your offer was $500 and you paid $100, that's a 20%. Now you got to pay the remaining balance of your offer within the specified time frame. Not doing so, IRS will say you didn't comply with the terms and conditions of the offer, and the whole thing will come right back. So the offer in compromise may not make sense. There are two other options that may make sense: the currently non-collectible status and the hardship payment plan. So check out one of my other videos where I discuss those in detail. Thanks for watching.